What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. Brian and I are here for a live stream ahead of the Toyota Mart 350. We brought you our picks and our preview, and we had fun doing it last time, so we're going to try and make this a weekly tradition if we can. Talk some line movement, talk some news if there's any, talk how our thoughts or, our feelings have shifted throughout the week from a both sports betting and daily fantasy perspective.
Yeah, I mean, before we even get started here, you just tweeted at me a short while ago that Chase Briscoe, one of the guys that I absolutely love this week, won the ARCA Series race here. So that's a great start to the weekend for Mr. Briscoe, and hopefully he can carry that over into the Cup Series race.
Yeah, exactly. And make your DFS pick look pretty solid. So let's jump into it, Brian, as we roll along. If you jump into the show, ask questions, let us know what you're thinking, both betting and daily fantasy. I want to look at the betting lines. So this is as of Thursday, when we recorded Thursday evening.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to venture over to Draftkings on my end, which, by the way, shouts to Draftkings for paying out all those John Rahm tickets.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. As someone who is currently a DraftKings shareholder in the stocks, very happy to see that. Hopefully it gives it a nice little boost. Yeah. He had a 6-shot lead, got kicked off the, was forced to WD. And
that's crazy.
We could talk about all that stuff, but we'll talk NASCAR because that's way more fun. So Chase Elliott is still your favorite. Truex is right there. The big winner, I guess he really hasn't. The one name that I keep hearing, Brian, I want to get your thoughts, and it's a name that I've actually already placed a wager on for tomorrow, is Kyle Busch.
Yes.
Opened at 10-1, got to about 7 or 8-1. I felt pretty good at that number. I don't love, dipping as low as that if I can avoid it, but I thought it made a lot of sense. Obviously, his history at Sonoma is very impressive. Obviously last time wasn't ideal, or no, it's Kurt Busch. Never mind. All right. While I pull up his recent run, you want to give me some thoughts on whether I made a good or bad bet there?
No, I think it's a great bet. When you look at his overall number in terms of his winning number moving like it has, and the fact that you could still get him as a top 5 in the minus 115 market, I think that's probably the safer of the two in order to, try to protect yourself from rooting for one out of the 40 guys that are driving in this race. But he is a guy who, more so than, even Chase Elliott almost, Kyle Busch, the last 3 races that they've ran here, which since they've implemented stage racing, Kyle Busch has the second best average finish here at 4th. So, he knows how to run this track. It's been a year. So they skipped it last year. So it's been 2 years now since they last ran here, but Kyle Busch he's been running better as of late in the 21 season. So I do think that this is another track where, because he excels at it, I think he's a guy to back and be able to trust in terms of where you think he's gonna finish.
Yeah. So 2nd, 5th, 7th, and 5th, or 1st is his last 5 finishes. I also protected my investment with a top 3, I believe. So I feel really good about Busch tomorrow. Even last year, Brian, when he wasn't running very well, or I guess he didn't run. We haven't seen Sonoma since 2019, which is kind of wild to think about.
COVID threw a wrench and everything.
Yep. So throwing out races. So that'll be interesting to see, off of a year layoff, basically how that impacts the drivers. But this is a guy that has had a ton of success, on road courses kind of in general, but especially at Sonoma, he's ran really well. So I did get down on that. I've also, as we talked about last time with your Alex Bowman love and how much on board I was with that, I jumped on that number as well. So I got him at 22, at 22-1. I also bet the top 5, I believe, at 3-1. So pretty happy with that, with those moves. Bowman's a guy who's trending in the right direction, has a great run on these road courses, and at that number, I feel like it's super bettable.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it. He's my he's my best bet this week to T5 here. I just think at how well he's ran, I mean, since 2018 on all road courses, I think that he offers the least amount of like differential in terms of how bad he could finish. So even if you lay a little more money and you're betting him to finish top 10, which is still minus 125.
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost as safe as it's going to get this week for a guy whose worst finish, I keep saying this, on a road course over the last since 2018 is 14th. So he's going to get a top 10 unless he crashes out, which we all know that can happen at any week, anytime. Sure. But yeah, I think he's one of the safer bets to win you money. If you're willing to lay a little bit more, it's pretty safe to go T10, or like me, go a little bit more risky with the T5.
Yeah. And he could be an interesting name to look at in the head-to-head market or group betting. Any other names start to tickle your fancy a little bit more as the weekend has kind of rolled along?
I mean, you mentioned it, and I've seen a few other people kind of back him, like in DraftKings, depending on where he's starting at. But I mean, Kurt Busch, top 10 right now is plus 150 for, again, another dude who just absolutely crushes this track. I know I said it on our Thursday pod when we recorded that he's kind of had a horrible string of bad luck this season. So I mean, you're kind of banking on his historical performances at this track to come into play rather than what he's been doing this year. So it's a little more risky, but I mean, again, at plus money for a guy who does so well here, him. And then of course, Tyler Reddick, top 10s almost every single week over the last like 6 or 7 races. It actually moved down. He's now plus 150. When we recorded last, it was plus 130. So I still like that number. I think he has a great chance to win you some money.
Yeah, and considering he's starting in the 10th hole, that's a really good spot. That is the thing about Kurt Busch, is like, I love his production at this track. I love his potential. I think that number makes some sense, but he is starting 30th, and that is a little worrisome, especially at a road course. Like, I feel like an oval course, it's a lot easier to catch up and make some early track movement. We'll see how it goes. But at plus 150 for a guy to move up 20 some spots, that feels... It does feel a little dicey, especially considering what we've talked about, kind of the latest, his run of, I don't want to call it success because it hasn't been success.
I mean, he's probably had the worst luck of any driver, over the last 10 or so races in terms of getting stuck into crashes that weren't his fault and or anything that he was actually involved in, and or just not cracking the top 10 yet. So you're taking a risk, like I said, but he is a guy who has done it here before, so there's no reason to think he can't do it again.
And if he was starting, say, like 14th or 17th, his number would probably be minus 110 instead of plus money.
Right.
So take that and roll with that. There's also going to be, I think there could be some interesting opportunities for like head-to-heads or like group betting if you want to kind of avoid him getting all the way up into the top 10, pulling up some race props to see if there's something I can cobble together that could make some sense. Ooh, this is interesting. So this is a group on DraftKings. I'm sure a lot of the other sites reflect it. Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, Brad Keselowski, and Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch is plus 325 to win that group.
I mean, just personally, I would go with Tyler Reddick, right? I mean, like you said, starting in the 10 hole, he doesn't have to move very high. And then you're banking on Kurt Busch moving up 20 spots. But still, at that number with those two other drivers, who Brad Keselowski, I mean, Big Bad Brad has been bad.
Yeah, and his recent run at this track, 18, 13, he had a third back in 2017, 15, 19, 22, 22. Like, I feel like you can eliminate him from the group. As much as I like what Christopher Bell can be and has popped a little bit. I think the move, and we talked about this before, is you bet Tyler Reddick, you bet Kurt Busch, and you try and lock in a profit, because I think the odds of one of those two guys winning is pretty dang good. So I like that call quite a bit. And then you kind of diversify your action, give yourself a little out, and you're still making plus money on both of those bets.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about this last week where there are situations where you can bet all three. You could bet three of the four guys and still walk away, profiting regardless of which one of them actually hits.
Yeah,
that's kind of like when you look at the next group that they have listed on DraftKings. It's Chris Buescher, Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, and Matt DiBenedetto. They're all very similarly priced. They're all plus 245. Chris Buescher is 245, and then the other three are plus 255. So you could pick two of those three guys, or two of those four, and you got a 50-50 shot at making money.
Yeah,
which is way better odds than picking one of them, hoping that one guy finishes ahead of the other three.
For sure. Looking at the head-to-heads, there's a few interesting ones. Joey Logano versus Ryan Blaney. You know my love for Ryan Blaney. Getting plus money on him against Logano. I know Logano's solid. And has had a good run at Sonoma, but I like Blaney quite a bit, and getting plus money, I feel like there's some decent value there. Christopher Bell minus 122 versus Keselowski. I know we like the other two, but I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'd probably. I mean, I'm not gonna wager that because my affinity to have Brad Keselowski bite me in the ass. I mean, I would rather lay less money on Keselowski than go with Christopher Bell in that situation.
And we have a little DFS darling head-to-head. Your Chase Briscoe, my Chris Buescher, both getting minus 115. That'll be fun to track tomorrow.
Every week they do that to me.
Yeah.
And then a little bit lower down the list, you have Tyler Reddick versus Kurt Busch, as we just discussed.
Yep. It's interesting how it's almost like they know, they don't, but it feels like they know.
Right?
And they're like, let me see. The one that's really interesting to me is Martin Truex plus 125 against Chase Elliott.
I think that's only because of where Truex is starting at. I understand that we've seen it this year where guys have moved up from pretty much the rear of the pack all the way to the front, but I think that's the only reason why this isn't almost even money.
Because Truex, by numbers, has been much more successful at this track. And I know Chase Elliott's the king of road course racing, and traditionally does well. But like, I wouldn't hate taking, even if you don't go a full bet on that, just a little taste, because I feel like there's value there. And if you don't want to bet with value, you'd rather wait, spend your money elsewhere. I totally get it, because Chase Elliott could easily win this race, and then you look real foolish betting Truex. But I think getting Marty at plus money is an interesting option. Maybe that's why they're doing it, to get me to be a sucker and give them money. But I feel like that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that falls right in line with something I failed to mention when we last recorded, and that's when looking at the top 5 market, I think there's some value in actually placing a wager on the lowest odd guy to not top 5, which is Chase Elliott, currently sitting at plus 235, being the statistics that I threw out there about the pole sitters almost failure to crack the top 4. I mean, he's not starting on the pole, but he's starting on the front row. And with how good he is at road courses, I can see a scenario where from the get-go, he jumps in front of Kyle Larson, and he's basically the pole sitter from the start of the race. And looking at historical data at this track, the guy who starts first finishes worse than 4th. So, you have a really good shot at that person falling back beyond the top 5, whether he's got car issues, whether there's the pressure from behind him of guys trying to dive in the corners and, fishtailing him, or just clipping a quarter panel or something of that nature. I think there's a better chance of that happening than, say, trying to, pick even the Kyle Larson thing, for instance.
Yeah, I like the Kyle Larson minus 129 to not top 5. There's 3 or 4. You could, I told you I'm on Kyle Busch, but if you wanted to fade him, minus 115 is a decent number. You get plus money on Martin Truex, who's starting 19th. I think he I think he has a great shot to win this race and runs
Yes.
really well. But plus money on a guy who's starting 19th, even with the success he's had, that feels like an interesting way to attack him. And you could kind of find a way, like, right, you can find a way to bet on Truex, but then hedge a little bit for him to not top 5 and see if you can't, save yourself if things don't go well or he crashes out or whatever. I think that could be an interesting way to attack this race.
Yeah, and on the other end of the spectrum, I would not blame anyone, or I'll probably do it, placing a small wager on Kurt Busch to top 5 at plus 500 at 5-1 for a guy who everybody knows is really good here. So I mean, that's a great number. I know he's starting 30th, very similarly to Martin Truex Jr., but if we all see his history at this track and we can all agree that he's one of the best drivers here.
Yeah.
I mean, starting 30th or not, that's not necessarily an indication at how well he's going to be able to do during the race, especially since there was no qualifying. There's no live qualifying. This is based on previous race and your current season standing. So this is not indicative of what they did at the track to lead into the race.
Right. And I'm very curious to see with some of these younger guys who haven't ran this course very much, or might not even have ran it in the NASCAR Cup Series, how well they perform. Tyler Reddick, the guy you've been talking about, plus 425 to top 5. That's nice value there. And then your boy Willie Byron, plus 170 to top 5. That feels very live.
Man, it's hard for me to get behind Byron because I mean he's not the road course master that you would kind of want to see at that kind of number, but for how well he's been driving this last year and a half, just in the series in general, regardless of what kind of track, I mean, that's a good line. We've seen it week in and week out. His lines continue to get smaller and smaller and smaller as they continue to adjust to realize that he's probably one of the top handful of drivers in terms of who has a chance to win the championship this year. So they're starting to adjust, and I mean, it's still good plus money. It's not the top 10 that I kept betting at plus money, but
yeah, I have a feeling those numbers are gone, Brian. I think you maximized your yes. opportunity there, and now it's time to move on to other pastures. I'm trying to pull up Willie Byron's Xfinity odds at road courses, but it's not working for me. Let's see if I can do this. Interesting. I don't know.
Let's see. He ran three road courses. Let's see. He sat pole twice, never top 10. His average finish of about 14th. So
yeah, maybe that's a number to avoid. Any other numbers you want to hit on, or any other interesting ways to attack the board, and then we can jump over and look at some DraftKings stuff?
I mean, another guy, it's really hard for me to bet him because he just hasn't looked the same. He's like that quiet assassin this year, and that's Kevin Harvick. I mean, he's quietly running in the top 10 every race. I mean, even he's plus 250 to T5, so he's right there with Alex Bowman. Yeah,
and he's on my card, so I hope you don't jinx him for me, because So right now, as of right now, I have Alex Bowman outright. I have Alex Bowman top 5. I have Joey Logano, Kyle Busch to win, Kyle Busch top 3, and Kevin Harvick top 5. That's what's official on my card right now. Beyond there, we'll see if we add to it. That Kurt Busch line, I keep going back and forth because the history, I love that. And I think it makes a ton of sense, but he's also starting 30th and hasn't exactly been running.
He hasn't been lighting the world on fire this year. Yeah.
Yes. So, I keep hemming and hawing and going back and forth. It'll probably be something where I'll wake up tomorrow and throw it on the card. And if you want to see what's on Brian and I's official card, we always try and tweet them out on Sunday morning. If we forget, hit us up on Twitter. We can always share that with you where we're at, because sometimes we get busy with our nonsense and then forget to get back to Twitter and post it up. But there's There's some interesting numbers.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, or we stay up too late playing sim racing, which
that is also
starting to get into. So
yes, and by the way, that will hopefully be coming. Some NASCAR heat via Twitch is our game plan. So Brian and I both got rigs with like not like the crazy ones like that you see on like Fox Sports, but
I don't have a direct drive.
The racing wheel and the little thing it sits on and all that good stuff. So our goal is to get that linked up and Twitch some NASCAR heat and talk some nonsense. So if you guys want to join us over on Twitch, we'll be aiming to get that rolling as well. Brian, should we work on a DraftKings lineup that we can both go simpatico on and see if we can't win us some dollars this week?
Let's do it.
Okay. And by the way, Brian, I really enjoyed my first Monkey Knife Fight experience. They obviously like have a variety of sports. They have pretty much everything. They also have NASCAR. Brian and I are going to try and write up some articles starting next week with some of our favorite picks over there. It's kind of interesting. You get to pick. There's usually like an either or an over under, and you usually have to make a couple picks. And the more picks you make, the more the more of a return, right? So if you make 2, you might get like, double your money.
It's like 2 to 1, I think.
Yeah. If you make 4, you might be looking at like 3.5, 4 to 1 on your money. So the more you add, the more upside there is, but you need all those guys. So there is some interesting ones for NASCAR. So like I mentioned, check out fakepigskin.com. If you want to check it out for this race, go over to monkeyknifefight.com, use the promo code pigskin, and you get a 100% match deposit plus a free $5 entry. So put $5 in, you get $5 match, and you get another 5. So you got 15 to roll with through the weekend. Give it a shot, see what you think.
Instead of buying that Starbucks coffee, go put that $5 in Monkey Knife Fight.
Go give it a Monkey Knife Fight, and then maybe you're buying 3 or 4 Starbucks coffees come Monday morning, which you'll probably need after watching the awesome race that will take place in Sonoma. I really wish I was going to be there, but it'll be probably 100 degrees tomorrow, and the traffic in and out of there is always a nightmare. So I'll watch it from the comfort of my home. A little F1 and a little NASCAR, and then maybe some NHL playoffs. I'm really looking forward to Sunday. All right, Brian, let's start with our dominator. We got to get someone to dominate the laps. There is a lot less laps, so getting there, obviously it's not going to be as crucial as say last week. But you do want to have someone who can dominate laps. Do we want to go Kyle Larson at the discount 9,700? We could go down to Willie Byron at 95, but we talked about our hesitation there. We could go to Chase Elliott 10.5, or we could get a little sneaky and go Kevin Harvick at 8,900, or we could do a little combo of the both. Where does your head immediately go?
I mean, for me, on my core, I have both Truex and Chase Elliott. Just being with both of them are the 2 strongest road course drivers that we would assume here. So for me, I would think Elliott. However, going with Kyle Larson starting on the pole, even if he doesn't finish inside the top 5, I mean, say he wins the first stage, he leads every lap during the first stage, you're going to get all of those half points. I mean, I'm assuming we're going to have like maybe 25 laps or so in one stage, maybe like 22 laps. So I mean, you're getting a good double-digit amount of points, and then even if he finishes 6th,
here's what I'll say. Kyle Larson fantasy points. We'll start at the Bushy McBush 400. 100 points, 59. 165, 44. 158. Is he going to underwhelm again and get 40, 50 points instead of 150 points? Do we fade the pattern, or do we ride it?
But at the 9,700, you could probably survive a 44-point output as opposed to going with the top end guy and like a Chase Elliott where you're spending 10.5.
I also think it'll make us make our decisions a little later easier, and I think going to Larson off the hop is going to make our lineup differentiate a little bit. So let's go Larson. Let's go Truex. Now our average remaining is 7,350. shall we venture down and see if we can find some salary savings before we figure out who our next guy is, or do you want to roll from the top and keep working?
Well, I mean,
we do love Alex Bowman.
The one thing about Bowman, though, starting in that 7 spot, you don't really have room for place differential. And
yep.
I know you have an outright on him for this week. I'm not as confident that he's going to be able to win this race. So, I mean, we're looking at a few spots moved into the top 5. I would tend to kind of creep a little bit further down.
Okay. Do we go to Kurt Busch?
I was just going to say, as much as with all of those placement points that you're going to get with him, I mean, even if he gets it, like I said, he's been getting in like the teens. He's moving up half of his spots. That's huge.
Yep. So Kurt Busch made our lineup. So right now we're Kyle Larson, Martin Truex, Kurt Busch. That gives us about 6,700. We need to save some salary at some point, Brian.
I mean, we can always go with James Davison, the dude who won the iRacing Invitational here. He's kind of a ringer in terms of road courses. This is what he excels at. It's his best kind of track. He does really well on road courses for $5,600. I mean, we're looking at, hopefully he can move a couple spots from 32nd into the low 20s and get us maybe 20 points for $5,600. That's a fantastic deal.
All right, let's throw him in and see what it does. So now we're at 7,350. I mean, we could make this really easy and go Chase and Chris Buescher and call it a day, or we could get a little more sneaky. Daniel Suarez season, Ryan Newman 6,300.
See, Newman's another guy at 20. What is he? 25th. He's starting.
The 20 starting 24th, 6,300, and then if you go him, now all of a sudden you have 8,400 to spend. Obviously. Especially in terms of GPPs, I think you want to try and avoid spending all your money. It just seems to be a better way to differentiate yourself. Now, if you're just in cash and you want to get your best lineup and go for it, because you're just trying to beat half the field. But if you're trying to win the big boy tournaments, saving
it's not about filling the
saving a few hundred, even like several $100 isn't always the worst way to go. Like we could easily go down to Chase Briscoe. We're not spending $1,500, but if we're entering a GPP, that could be the move. We could also go up a little bit. We could get
our boy Eric Jones, my friend.
We could go to Eric Jones. We could go to Tyler Reddick at 8,000. What's Eric Jones at 7K?
Okay, here's a little tidbit for you. So since April 18th at the Toyota Owners 400, Eric Jones has improved from his starting position in all but one race, which was the Geico 500, where he started 22nd and finished 27th. Every other race was started 30th, finished 19th, started 27th, finished 25th. I know it's only 2. 26 to 18th, 23 to 22, 29 to 16, 19 to 16. So, and he's averaging right in between like 30 and 40 points in this time span.
Yeah.
At a track that he does really well at.
Let's do it. Save 1,400. Win a milli. That's how we do it. Kyle Larson, Martin Truex, Kurt Busch, James Davison, Ryan Newman, and Eric Jones. That is your milli maker winner for the week.
Right. If that actually happens, oh my Lord.
I'm gonna have to enter it now just to see.
Exactly. Yeah. How could we not?
And when we win, we'll be paying for our podcast for the next year, so that'll be glorious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
I really like Eric Jones. I think this is maybe the second or third time this season where I've actually been confident in my own like personal intrigue in him as a driver, not just past experiences.
Well, and honestly, he's somebody that if one of us likes him, it's usually a good sign. If we both like him, it's usually a terrible sign. So that's that's good news.
That is true.
Do you think he's top 10 worthy? Plus 350 is very enticing.
I think it's totally possible. We talked about this when we recorded. Chris Buescher, Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, Eric Jones, all guys who aren't necessarily top 10 contenders on a week in and week out basis.
Yeah.
I think all have a great shot at getting into the top 10 this week.
Yeah. Ryan Newman at plus 450, Eric Jones at plus 350, Chris Buescher plus 225, and Tyler Reddick at plus 150. Those are all top 10 market bets that could make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Anytime you get plus money to finish a quarter of the field.
Yeah. I mean, it's still, you have to finish in the top third, which is never ideal, or top, 25%, but
true.
But last week it worked out with some guys, and I think we could find ways to attack that market yet again. Brian, this was fun. It was good to chat, good to talk. If you joined the show as we were recording, we appreciate you hanging out. If you are watching after the facts, thanks for joining us. As I mentioned, Brian and I are going to try and do this each and every week ahead of the NASCAR race. Some weeks there will be qualifying, so that will make this even better because we'll be able to talk about stuff post qualifying. But with the lineup set, we're able to get that in on Thursday. But we want to update the odds and see what's moving, see what's grooving. As I mentioned, if you want to head over to Monkey Knife Fight and use our code PIGSKIN to match your deposit plus free $5, come over there. There's some really cool options for NASCAR. As I mentioned, Brian and I will be writing it up on Fake Pigskin starting next week. But as always, good luck this weekend.
Yes,
good luck to you, Brian. Hopefully our lineup will win us a nice bankroll from DraftKings. Hopefully our bets come to fruition. And we're feeling good come Sunday evening. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to y'all next time.